I'm Ashton Addison from EventChain for Investmentpitch Media and FinTech News Network. And today on Blockchain Interviews, we have John DeVadoss, the Head of Development for Neo Global Development Seattle. John, thank you so much for being on the show. It's a pleasure to have you on today.
Likewise. Thank you, Ashton. Thank you for having me on the show. It's a privilege to be here.
You're very welcome. I am very excited to talk about Neo. I know that you guys just hit your 3-year anniversary of the mainnet launch just sometime in the last week. This has been one of the bigger projects in the space. You guys have a lot of updates that are coming, and I'm looking forward to hearing a little bit about the Neo 3.0 blockchain that's in the works for next year as well. So if you would kick it off by giving us a sneak peek, or what are we supposed to expect out of the new developments of Neo, and then we'll talk about some of the things that just come out. But let's get a high-level overview. What do we expect for Neo 3.0 that you guys are working towards right now?
Oh, certainly, yeah. So there's a lot to talk about. You're right. Let me give you just a synopsis, if I may. I would say at the core, Ashton, our thesis is that, it is time to drive mass adoption. The time is now ripe. It is ready. The market is ready. Customers and in particular developers are ready. So to enable mass adoption, we strongly believe it's about developers, and developers. This notion that somehow there's a magical dApp that will change the game is just a flawed assumption. There are 21 million developers across the world, Ashton. And we believe that our job is to go serve them. And in doing so, magic will happen. 1,000 flowers will bloom. We will see, dApps, left, right, and center. And so we believe in a developer focus to enable mass adoption. For us, for Neo 3, the singular focus is enabling broad, again, like I said, mass adoption globally, and investing significantly in tools like, for example, the Neo Blockchain Toolkit for .NET, in order to enable developers to, with as less friction as possible, to build dApps, to exploit the capabilities, and enable the best possible experience for end users.
That's great. Yeah, I saw that you came out with the toolkit in the Visual Studio library, is it? Can you explain a little bit on how that helps Neo developers? It takes the heavy lifting off of them?
Well, absolutely, yeah. So just to give you some context, if you look at, for example, VS Code, on the average, Ashton, there's about 7 million developers using VS Code every month. To give you some context, if you ask people, how many devs are there who are doing blockchain or dApp or smart contract development, at best, there's about 100,000 people, developers. And so you look at where we are, 100,000 people here. And then on the average, every month, 7 million developers. And so our goal, my goal here is, look, let's make life as easy, as simple as possible. Now, what does it mean? It means that unlike, for example, Ethereum, where there is a new, a specific language in terms of solidity, we believe in a polyglot world, i.e., you can use C#, Java, JavaScript, Python. Go, you pick the language you want, we will come to you. Rather than making you as a developer come to us, we go to where you are. Now, further, what this means is, one IDE. So, for example, today, if you're building, a smart contract, you go get the compiler over here, the debugger over here, the private net, and the versioning. It's a nightmare. In particular, debugging is just a major issue today. So we have strived to say, look, what does the mainstream developer know? What have they come used to? And let's make the exact same experience. So one IDE, one place to go. You don't have to go to 6 different places to download, to install. And again, lastly but not the least, one experience. We call this the F5 experience. Whether you are editing, debugging, deploying, testing, or even pushing to Testnet or mainnet, one place, right, out of the box. And this is basically what we have done with the Neo Blockchain Toolkit for .NET.
That's very elaborate, and that makes sense to open up to all those programming languages with all the current developers in the world, not having to take that extra step to learn, in the case of Ethereum, Solidity, specifically just for that blockchain. So that's great interoperability. I could see how moving forward you could have developers working from other platforms into Neo very easily. So that's great. And I read also that in the toolkit, you're working on the Neo Express private network. And we talked at the beginning of this video about the Neo 3.0 mainnet. Can you give a little elaboration on the differences Is it that developers are working on the private networks in the meantime and can push things or suggest things to the mainnet, or are they one and the same?
It's a very good question, Ashton. So the mainnet, as obviously the word implies, is the production public chain. What we have is also a testnet where developers can test, i.e. stage the application before pushing it to the mainnet. The private net essentially is a private scope chain for developers, for a single developer or a team of developers to build, to edit, debug, test before they go to either a testnet or a mainnet. And in our case, unlike some other platforms, there are many private chains out there, but oftentimes they have built them much like a toy. In our case, with the Neo Express, there is symmetry of the code base. We have taken the mainnet code base for Neo 2 and Neo 3, and essentially Neo Express is essentially the same code base, obviously customized and configured for developer scenario. What this means is, as a developer, oftentimes you hear the story, it works on my machine, it doesn't work in production. That is something that will not happen on Neo because it is the same code base. We have symmetry across private net, testnet, and mainnet.
That's great. And one of the other tools that's very important for developers, I believe, are code libraries and having a lot of sample code built in so you don't have to work from scratch. You guys are working on the Neo FX library. Is that out right now, or when is that out, and how will that help the developers?
Oh, I love the question. I love the question. So you're right. We are working on libraries. Let me give you I guess there are two perspectives here, Ashton. The first one is, as a developer, whether you're building, a gaming app or a DeFi app or an exchange, today, for the most part, you start at the base level, at the API, and you build everything up from the API. Now, what I learned at Microsoft building and working on the .NET stack is, you want to decrease the surface area. Obviously, why? Because in terms of productivity, time to market, but also security. The more code a developer writes, the more you have in terms of potential possibilities for security issues. So we're building these libraries. And as a developer, if you're building a wallet, there's only so much code to write that's left for you. Or you're building a DeFi application, you don't start here at the base level, you start here. And this is what we call essentially the Neo libraries. Now, NeoFX is obviously one category. The goal is very simple. Today, if you're building a smart contract, or if you're building an off-chain application, or you're building a plugin for a node, oftentimes those are three, sometimes even more than three programming models. As a developer, you have to learn and relearn each scenario separately. With NeoFX, we said, look, forget about it. You learn the model once, the object model once, and then whether you're building a smart contract, you're building an off-chain application, or you're building a custom extension for a node, it is the exact same programming model. So as a developer, less time, you get to market sooner, but also less surface area. And in terms of security, in terms of testing and validation, there is so much less to do because we do the heavy lifting. Now, we believe, and again, we are working with obviously our friends at Microsoft and others, we believe that something like NeoFX will be eventually an industry standard. Now, obviously, we're building for Neo first, but we do have a longer term ambition of saying, look, let's take this across the ecosystem, across the industry. And it's about time, because for now, we believe in this mission, right, of enabling decentralization, of enabling developers at scale, and of course, to create benefits for the man on the street, the woman on the street. To do so, we have to get millions and millions of developers. I believe that something like NeoFX is a huge building block in going down that path, Ashton.
That's great, John. And you mentioned you're working with Microsoft. I saw that you recently joined as the first blockchain member in the .NET Foundation. Can you talk about what was the goal for Neo to get into the foundation, and how will it help now that you're in the .NET Foundation?
Yeah, I love the question. So you're right. We recently, about 4 weeks ago, we are the first, and at this point, the only blockchain platform that is a member of the .NET Foundation. So why are we doing this? Again, to go back to developers, on the average, like I said, about 7 million developers using VS Code every month. And our goal is, look, even if I can get 10% of those 7 million, Ashton, that is about 5 times, 6 times the number of blockchain developers in the world today, right? So for us, in terms of enabling the extensions, making it as friction-free as possible. This is a huge tactic in our long-term strategy of taking Neo mainstream to enable our vision of the smart economy. Of course, there is more in terms of the community, in terms of working with the Microsoft Azure toolset, and also to get feedback. This is a singularly special opportunity for us, and we're very happy and certainly very thankful as well to Microsoft and the .NET Foundation to do so in this partnership.
That's great. And are there other companies in the .NET Foundation or other companies that you wish to partner with as you guys move forward?
Absolutely. So the reason we are in Seattle is I believe Seattle is the platform city. We see in the Valley more and more consumer innovation around business and commercial models. In Seattle is where Azure is being built, obviously Amazon Web Services, people like Google Cloud, and so on. So our ambition as the platform for the smart economy, you will see us make more announcements and certainly more partnerships in the coming months with respect to the likes of the Amazons and so on. So obviously I can't share too much at this stage, but certainly, you will see us make these announcements in the coming 3, 6, 9 months and so on.
Mm-hmm. And I saw that last month you made an announcement about the Neo 3.0 Testnet. Is this Preview 1 has launched? Can you touch on how did that go and how is it looking moving forward?
Oh, so very good progress. We're very happy. We're actually thrilled about the launch of the Testnet. It sets us up well for the Neo 3 public release sometime next year, in the first part of next year. Very strong developer feedback. The goal is very simple. Obviously, in this world of blockchain and decentralized systems, the goal is to get as many developers, as many apps as possible to give us feedback. Yes, we have a vision, we have a platform roadmap, we have published in terms of the features and capabilities. However, all said and done, the key is feedback from developers, what they like, what they don't like, the gaps, and of course, what to prioritize first. And so over the next 6 months, the goal is, okay, let's get the feedback, let's then scale it and say, okay, first is this feature, and so on and so forth. So we're very happy, and it's going to be a busy and certainly a fun 6 to 8 months as we prepare for the launch of Neo 3 mainnet.
That's great. And besides the toolkit and joining the foundation, the library, are there any other things that you're looking at building to bring more adoption to the Neo blockchain development?
Oh, absolutely. So inside the toolkit, in fact, if I could drill down for just a few seconds, inside the toolkit, obviously, a few things. One, we have customized the compiler to emit metadata to enable debugging. So second, we have the smart contract debugger. We believe at this point, Ashton, we probably have the best-in-class debugging experience for smart contracts in the industry. We're also, like I said, investing in NeoFX and libraries. And of course, last but not the least, the toolkit, the extensions itself. Our goal as we ship the toolkit is to invest in guidance. So what do I mean by guidance? Again, as a developer, there are these recurring themes or scenarios or use cases. And our goal is for the most common, the most popular scenarios and use cases to enable the building blocks. For example, authorization, authentication, logging, right? Being able to make them as GitHub open source building blocks. And so the developer out there does not have to reinvent the wheel. They can just pick and choose what blocks they want. And whether you're building a DeFi app or an exchange or a wallet or a gaming app, we think that we can significantly decrease the time, possibly by an order of magnitude. At this point, for example, right, on the Neo toolkit, you can actually build and deploy a C# smart contract in about 3 or 4 minutes. And our goal is to make it even simpler, even easier, much less friction. And especially with the building blocks, the guidance, we believe we can change the game. And again, with the goal of taking this mainstream. That is a singular goal. Otherwise, we'll always be a niche. The whole industry will be a niche. And what is the point? Yeah. Right? We are here to change the world, right? And the goal is, look, there is millions of devs out there. And how do we make sure we serve them by going to where they are, as opposed to being elite like other platforms say, come to us. We are the inverse and say, look, we will come to you. Whichever language, whichever IDE, whichever tool set, we will come to you and we'll make your life easier as a developer.
That's great, Sean. And you got to have big goals. And this is a question that I have about big goals is, what are the challenges or the most challenging thing you may come across in the next 8 months in the lead up to the mainnet?
Yeah, so fantastic question. So obviously, it behooves us to make sure that we have a very clear migration plan, that we support our developers and our existing ecosystem with the tools to ensure there is as less risk as possible in terms of taking the apps forward. It'll be obviously not a very easy journey, but certainly we remain very committed, and we believe that the tools we build and the migration plans we have in place will be very effective. But of course, at the end of the day, the developers will tell us what they like and what they don't like. But we remain very, very committed to the journey. And again, so Neo 3 is just one more step in the longer term roadmap. So obviously, we'll do more with Neo 3. For instance, we are shipping Neo ID, Neo FS. We are making some significant architecture changes around the Neo VM and so on. But for us, it's not there is no big bang release, right? It's going to be ongoing. We get Neo 3, then the next couple of weeks we'll have obviously enhancements and features and so on, more guidance, more libraries, more tools. So it's going to be a much more longer term roadmap that we remain very, very singularly committed to, Ashton.
Yeah, the development never ends, but you have those little mini wins on the way. So best of luck with that, John.
Very well said. Very well said, sir. Yes.
Yeah, I know software, and I know that it never ends. You're always working on the newest thing. So how can more developers learn more, get involved, get access to these toolkits so they can help start working on Neo right now?
Thank you. So a few places. So in terms of GitHub, well, we have we are open source MIT license. So would love to have devs look at GitHub, give us feedback, make pull requests. We're also on the VS Code marketplace. So if you want to go search for the Neo Toolkit, install the extension, play with it, give us feedback. We would love to hear from devs on what they like. What else could we build on? What new features? I mean, the only reason we exist is because of developers. And it's not for us or for me to say what is the priority. Thus far, it's been a very strong community connection. And the more feedback on GitHub as well as the marketplace. And of course, always send me email, john.devadoss@ngd.neo.org. Would love to hear from folks out there. Call me, tell me what you like, tell me what you don't like. And I'm very happy to serve you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time, John. It's been a pleasure. Let's follow up in the near future.
Likewise. Thank you very much, Ashton. You have a good evening. Okay, take care of that.